himself, and he stopped doing that when he went into Challenger. It was just like, wow, he's really cleaned up and doesn't really get caught out anymore. And I think recently he's kind of regressed into old Woolite. So we'll have to see if he can.
Back gave out, and now he can't.
It's true. He's got the stroller and just can't make it to safety fast enough. But we'll see if he can compile out. Because I was really impressed by Woolite when he first joined Challengers. So see if he can do it up against, I would say, one of the new talents, which is Hansammer, really been impressive recently. But we are into Champion Select here, so going to be banning away the Rek'Sai. And the Rides is a very early ban actually from Misfits, but still on red side. Only against Kotsky or Sartorius. And then Braum taken away from Dreams and Vlad. I mean, like, standard bans on red side.
Yep, nothing too unconventional so far. The Rek'Sai, quite surprising, to be honest. It looks like a bit of a target ban towards Wisdom. He has had some of his best performances on that Rek'Sai so far. But I'm sure he can still play things like the Gragas, like the Kindred. He did have some great Kindred games in the past. The big thing for Wisdom is he tends to be the player on Misfits that gets caught out the most. And if Misfits end up falling short, it is largely because of Wisdom being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Indeed. Sorry, that was weird. I'm not sure if you heard that, but I got weirded out by the music there. So yeah, Wisdom does kind of get caught out a lot. I do agree with that, but he also makes some pretty good plays at the same time, so it's kind of 50-50 depending on which Wisdom turns up, depending on the game. Trundle and Irelia also banned away. That leaves pretty much every jungler available apart from Rek'Sai. So Gragas priority, Nidalee, for example, if they want to lock that in. Kiwi's going to pick that up. It's pretty much been a staple of Kiwi for the longest time. He really actually likes the transform champions over other ones, which is interesting. Like very much likes the Nidalee, Lee's, for example. Yeah. Jace in jungle. Yeah. Haven't seen that yet from Kiwi, but I remember like ages ago, probably like a year and a half ago, he was like, yeah, I really like those two champions specifically. So if he can get his hands on them and they conform to the meta, he will always pick them up.
And Nidalee is still very powerful when it comes to the early pressure in an enemy jungle. I was fortunate to have a chat with Maxtor, and I was like, so after the nerfs to Nidalee and Kindred and 611, do you think they're gone? Do you think they're dead? And he's like, we're likely to see less priority on them, but they still have that powerful aspect in the early game where they can just walk into the enemy jungle, and there are very few junglers that can match that sort of early game power. So which is why we're still seeing them be prevalent in both Challenger Series and LCK.
That's true. It's funny you say I had the privilege to talk to Max though. Back in the day when we were in the UK scene, it was like I call like the UK scene like a village. It was like, oh hey, how's it going, Max Law? Like, tell me a bit about jungle. Now he's a hotshot LCS jungler, and
I was trying to touch him anymore. That's very much what it's like. I literally just message him on Twitter being like, yo, what's good up now? Yeah. And he's just like, yo, this is good. And I'm like, cheers.
Yep. It's cool knowing those guys from coming in from Challenger. I actually have a lot of UK players coming into Challenger recently, more and more, which is actually cool to see them come out of the UK scene and head into Challenger. But
Alfari is one of the UK rising talents that we've
in the top lane.
He's been one of those prodigal top laners, combined with the prodigal AD carry. This is why Misfits are considered a bit of a super team. When you also have the talent of Selfie chucked in there as well, you have a very impressive lineup.
Indeed.
But we'll have to see how well they can perform against Epsilon, who were the former Inspire. Sartorius did have some very impressive performances when he was playing for them. And with neither top laner locked in just yet, there's still plenty of room for both these top laners to show their stuff.
There is indeed. So we're going to see those later on into the draft, but we do have Karma coming out, very high priority. We've seen recently will flex into mid or support for Dreams or Selfie, and Lucian picked up for Hansammer, and we've seen what Hansammer can do with actually pretty much any pick, but when he can get his hands on Lucian and really dominate that lane, even with the nerfs to Lucian over the last couple of patches, he can really shine. We actually had more lock-ins as well. So Caitlyn and Azir to Epsilon.
So the Lucian is actually really good in the mid game because of the nerfs that he did experience to both his Q and the range on his W. That was probably the worst of the nerfs, but, but his early game, his early game got nerfed. His laning phase is not as oppressive as it used to be, simply because the range on his Q is not as easy to poke out your opponents anymore. He's still decent. I would definitely not count him out as like a weak laning phase, but it's not as oppressive as it once was. I mean, I've even seen Ezreal's bully Lucians out of lane now if you play the matchup properly. So he's more about that mid-game spike, and that's also been made ever so slightly weaker because on patch 6.12, which is the patch that we are on, the AD on Ghostblade has been reduced by 5. So still a great item.
Big hit.
Still really powerful. Hey, don't diss it. Remember Warriors Enchantment? When that got that +5, it was absolutely massive.
That's true.
But the Caitlyn is mainly being picked up for the laning phase. Would not be surprised Misfits go for a lane swap here just to avoid that Caitlyn entirely, because someone who does have a very obnoxious laning phase is that Caitlyn. Very big range advantage. can just sit there and hit you multiple times. And if we're also speaking of range, Azir, we saw it in the last game, really good at keeping your arm's length, has a lot of poke potential, and just scales very nicely into the mid and late game. So Epsilon right now, their early game covered by the Nidalee, their mid to late game covered by the Caitlyn and Azir, and they're slowly building themselves a very well-rounded comp.
Yeah, and we have more lock-ins. It will be the Rumble actually coming out for Misfits. Very cool to see that champion coming back more and more actually into the top lane.
Yes.
See some Proto Belt on Rumble, which is very fun to watch. And Elise going into the jungle. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, we have Gragas coming out. Gonna assume that's top lane since we have the Nidalee and Bard. Okay, so we have the full rosters locked in with no flexes that could go in different places right now. So we have the everything coming in from Epsilon.
You could have a Nidalee top. Go back Trini Force
You could.
days,
Oh
Nidalee
man, actually triggered. That was like the worst lane to play against like ever. Good old Nidalee
Infinite
top.
Heals,
Infinite heal,
trade back,
tanky, does a stupid amount of damage. Horrible.
Oh man. So yeah, but unlikely.
Very
You've already
unlikely.
talked about how Kyrie is typically known for that Nidalee, and Sartorius was one of the first people to bring out the top lane Gragas back in Challenger Series. So something that he is comfortable on. I'm surprised that he's decided to pick it into the Rumble, because any melee matchup into a Rumble is often quite difficult. But if they make the assumption the Misfits are going to go for a lane swap, then it should be okay. But we'll have to see how things play out. And the Swain! The Swain mid!
Back.
I love Swain mid,
Yeah,
and I'll tell you why I love
does.
Swain
All right,
mid,
I'm gonna
because
leave him to
Defissio
it.
and I have been arguing about this for weeks, and he keeps going to me, oh hey Vedius, I like all the, that's my Danish accent.
Defissio
Have you
impression.
noticed all of the Swains that we've been picking up recently in Europe? And I'm just like, shut up, he's going to be picked. He's super good right now.
NA likes him.
They do, because NA understands me.
Oh, I see, yeah.
But Swain is really good. Not into this comp or this matchup, but it's still...
And it's last picked as well, coming in here.
So we'll talk a little bit more once we get into game about the actual matchup. But in terms of the overall compositions for Misfits, it's kind of all over the shop. They've largely picked for lane dominance, I would argue. You have Elise for the early game pressure. Sorry. You have Rumble, who's just a really big lane bully. That's sort of his go-to thing. And then you have Lucian Karma, which is just actually quite a difficult lane to go up against. So Caitlyn obviously can be quite difficult as well because of her big range advantage. We've already discussed that. When you pair that up with the Bards, he is also, if you play the matchup very well, is very powerful during the laning phase, simply because he lands those cosmic bindings, can root you up whenever you're trying to be aggressive, and it allows Caitlyn to just keep your arm's length all the time. So I just think it's a bit of a weird comp coming out from Misfits. Very heavy on the team fighting, that's for sure, but it's picking it intentionally into Epsilon, who have such great disengage, and there's no way for Misfits to hard force a fight, I think will prove very difficult for them if they don't snowball the lanes.
Well, I'm sure you'll be talking a lot about Swain as we get into game Vedius, but here we have the compositions and, of course, the hashtags. So jump on Twitter, EPS win and MSF win. I wonder we'll see another crazy vote like we did last game. 98%, and they lost. So we'll see if that is the case coming into this game.
Isn't there some kind of curse, though, that if it's over 90%, that team usually always loses?
Yeah, so like 98% is the ultimate curse, where you're just guaranteed to lose the game.
So apparently there are so many votes that physically tilts you, and that results in you losing.
It's a lot of burden, I have to feel. I mean, the players don't know how many votes they have, but they can feel it. A disturbance in the force.
Feel it in their bones. Right.
But the other thing about the composition from Misfits, where they were just kind of picking it as they went, they have a lot of AP. Like, Hansammer is the only AD threat on that team.
Literally the only AD.
Oh, there's Beatrice.
Wait, oh no, he actually has a name, doesn't it? It's in the lore, the name of his bird, isn't it?
It's not his, it's a she.
Sorry, I was talking about Swain's bird has a name.
Yeah.
Swain's bird, yeah.
I don't think the lesser ravens have names, though, just Beatrice.
Alright, so let me explain why I don't like this Swain pick into this composition specifically, right?
Despite Vedius loving Swain.
Despite the fact that I do love Swain, and I also think he's just really strong right now. In the mid lane, he's low mobile, and because a mid lane has many avenues to gank from, it's a little risky putting him in the mid, which is why in North America you've actually seen him coming out more in the top lane than in the mid lane, because the longer lane suits him better. He can play a little bit safer, he can use the brushes, and there's more room for him to play around, and it's basically just an easier way for him, and the teleport makes a lot of sense on him, so you can put him up in the top lane as well. But also into this matchup specifically, he faces a very similar problem to Rise, where his actual range is very short. What makes him ever so slightly worse than Rise is the fact that he doesn't have the movement speed bonus that a Rise gets, and the way in which Rise typically itemizes towards. So not only is it actually as difficult for a Swain to play against an Azir as a Rise is, but it's harder because he has no actual way to close the gap unless the Azir, for some reason, stands inside his Never move. So overall, this is just a very difficult matchup for Selfie. However, I have seen him win negative matchups before. So I'm excited to see how he plays this one out, as it does look like EPS were the ones to initiate the lane swap. They wanted to avoid the 1v1, get Sartorius away from Alphari, and they've actually decided to keep Sartorius in the lane, which I actually find very interesting.
Yeah, so not going to go for the triple push here. And meanwhile, you can see that mid lane. There's the TP from Sartorius, so he's actually now going to get out of dodge.
Yeah, so what he's done is he stayed in the bottom lane just to pick up a bit of extra farms. Yes, it was EPS that initiated the lane swap, so he could get to lane quicker. He knew that Misfits, sorry, would be...
That's still right, MSF.
Misfits would be doing the Gromp, so he knew he could just soak up as much farm and experience as possible. Then he used his TP to help actually take that turret faster, because the minion will take longer to die if you've got the teleport on top of it, and then you're just buying more time for your bottom lane to damage onto it, and your top lane is also getting there first. So it does give you an ever so slight tempo advantage, and overall, EPS will just get an ever so small lead with the CS, experience, tempo, and all that jazz.
All of that jazz, and just a little bit there. And also to keep an eye on is Kotsky's not running a teleport, of course, because he's Azir. Doesn't really want to be on side lanes, whereas Selfie is. So going to be able to play on 3 lanes potentially later on to this game. And both towers will be taken down as well. So normal start to the lane swap.
And just to add to that point, because Swain typically builds quite off-tanky, it's actually quite good for him to run teleport, because if he does go for a TP flank, it works out quite nicely. You can buy a lot of time, especially once you've got Zhonya's. Just go into the fight, drop the Zhonya's down, and works out quite nicely. So Selfie is dead.
We're going to have to CSI to the crime scene here. I believe Kirei came in and threw the spear, which was the cause of death.
Yeah, well, we'll get a replay of that and see exactly how things went awry. Very unfortunate for Selfie. Talked about how this was already a rough matchup.
Is he in range? Yes, he is. Of the chickens. Get out of
that one. But now, Kirei demonstrating the power of this early game mid lane.
Also the fact that Wisdom just took a spear to the face. Had the Spidings been down and he dodged the spear, then he wouldn't have taken all that damage. All right. We're going to see CCTV footage of what happens in mid lane. So
Selfie just overextends is the honest truth. On a Swain, you have no way to dash out from that, and unfortunately, he had no vision in either side of the lane, so it results in him falling behind us. Hans and Dreams trading pretty heavily down the bottom lane.
Cause of death, overextension, case closed.
Why have you gone detective on me, Balls?
Because we didn't see it. Kirei died to Alphari. Let's CSI this crime scene. Wisdom apparently came in. Cause of death, Arachnid. We didn't see that kill either, but it was just another gank. Not even. What was Kirei doing there? He was not even with Sartorius. How did he die there?
Challenger series. That's all I'm gonna say.
What was his motivation?
Okay, so. All right, give me a second to collect my thoughts. Kira, right, okay, now I understand. I now have context. He actually just wanted to get some damage down to Alphari, who's only level 2. Kirei should be able to win that 1 versus 1, but he did not realize that Wisdom was in a position to get the counter game. So, does make sense. Wasn't completely unreasonable from Kirei. He should have got a bit of deep vision down if he wants to go for that play, but I can understand why he would want to make it. Try and shut Alphari down while he can. And interestingly, Misfits actually decided to return to standard lanes, which was very unfortunate because the wave was actually pushing towards Sartorius, and this is the power of that deep ward that you have. So if you can see that the bottom lane hasn't crossed it, you can actually just allow the wave to push towards you, and Sartorius has been able to build up this big CS difference up in the top lane. It's actually absolutely phenomenally huge. That's why you only have level 3 Alphari to the level 5 Sartorius. Fortunately, he will be able to close that gap a little bit with that big minion wave. But still, this is not really where you want your Rumble.
Not really. I would say baited and outsmarted, but he's got 7 CS to 37. And yes, he picked up the kill, but he is still so far down in terms of gold. It's like 500 gold advantage just from farm currently. Luckily, he's going to pick up this wave, but he is Rumble underneath the tower, so he doesn't have the best CSing. I say that, but he's picked up every single one of these perfectly, so good job, Alphari. The prodigy in the top lane, as we've been saying, farming god. But he is still 3 levels behind, whereas Sartorius has his ultimate. I think he just walked out of the bush, so he got seen by that ward. But this will be the red buff taken away regardless, because Wisdom doesn't have the help from mid lane or Alphari, so he'll have to go into the bottom side of his jungle, whereas Kyurei and Sartorius have level advantages. In bot lane, Misfits are going to siege in here and also have an advantage, so kind of topsy-turvy. You've got the advantage on one side of the map, which means a disadvantage in the other side, where the junglers have been.
I'm just looking at some of the vision that EPS have actually gotten down. Kyurei doing what he can on this early game Nidalee to just make sure that he can see what Wisdom is up to, see if he can try and get some counter ganks down, because he will typically be the one to come out ahead. Hansama gets locked up.
Nice binding out from Noxia, but Hansama is turning this one around with Dreams, who is now out of mana. Culling comes across, will land a lot of the channel onto Warlight, but Hans is real low. Meanwhile, Wisdom is taking this opportunity to take away the red buff. Also had the cover from Selfie in the mid lane, so he is good to go. And Dreams is TPing back to base. So after all of that, no kills go down, but the red buff over to Wisdom. He's just going to jump towards his good buddy, the Mountain Dragon, and take the crab. So what are we looking in terms of this game? 1 kill apiece, 1 tower apiece, and equal gold. So we are in a very even game here.
Okay, so this is Misfits basically saying, all right, Sartorius, you're no longer allowed to freeze the lane. We're going to send Hans and Dreams up to the turret to make sure that it bounces back towards Alpharius. Kozku goes for the gank.
He's coming in. He's going out. He's going to pop the ultimate. Dreams are following after. Hans are going to flash aggressively into the Q, into the kill. And Hansama, I mean, yeah, cut and dry. Easy kill.
Fortunately for Kozku, he was not expecting the bottom lane of Misfits to be there. And simply because he was in a numbers disadvantage, even though he flashes away, it's just not enough to create a gap between him and Dreams, who, to be fair to Dreams, he was very smart. He uses the flash to guarantee the landing of the root. So look at the vision from Kozku. He doesn't see this, and he's in an unfortunate surprise when he realizes that Hans and Dreams are just waiting for him there. And yeah, just want to iterate how smart that was from Dreams to actually flash preemptively to make sure that his binding would land onto Kozku and get Hans the kill.
It was all a setup. Kozku did not know, and he's fallen behind in terms of farm. And he will go back into the mid lane, but it will allow Misfits to take the top tower. I believe we have a push in the bottom lane as well, so should be able to take this one away. Yeah, that's going to fall down to Woolite and Noxiac, so not going to be falling all that out of this game, but Sartorius is still ahead in the 1v1 matchup and is up towards the Dark Seal and the Corrupting Potion in here. Meanwhile, Herald is being taken by Wisdom and Dreams. Most likely going to give this probably over to Hansama, or even Wisdom.
So
but it's reset twice.
Now what you want to do is send your duo lane to the bottom half of the map, because that is pushing towards EPS's side, and you need your strong laners to be pushing the strong take while the weak receive. And so you can afford to have both your Lucian and Karma extend past the river, because they are your stronger side. So even if a gank comes through, they're not necessarily at any risk. And then you want the wave to be frozen by Alphari to have it pushing towards him. And that is why EPS are sending their bottom lane up towards Alphari, because they don't want him to freeze. They want to get that minion wave shoved underneath the turret. As Selfie, he might be getting collapsed on.
Spear unfortunately lands onto a minion, but going to follow up regardless. Flash out by Selfie, respecting the Emperor's Divide from Kozku, and he will be getting out scot-free. Well, he had to burn his flash, but that was actually very big. So 11 minutes into this game, 1 kill advances to Misfits. Lots of map movement from both teams. No one has gone for the dragon yet, even though it is an Earth Dragon. So no one has really prioritized that.
Do remember that it is the hardest trait to kill out of all of them.
It's true.
So at least unlikely to try and solo it, because it is quite risky. 88%
avoided the curse.
Just
that's
barely,
the main
thing.
Yeah.
So
no 90% this time.
EPS. To be fair to EPS, they do have a lot of well-known players. Kozku, formerly of Inspire, I do believe, along with Sartorius.
I would say that Woolite, Kirei, and Noxiac, the higher profile players in that team, having all been in LCS.
That is true. But for me, Kotsky is just a guy that's been around Challenger for such a long time.
Forever.
I know him
years
as this very well-seasoned mid laner.
That's it. That's really interesting, actually, because, well, I'm going to hold that for a second. Dreams has been caught out, and probably not long for this world. Yep.
Sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams. That was a nightmare, really, for Misfits. And they just kind of lose them in rotation. Can they capitalize on that, though? They will try and seize the mid lane. They do have Caitlyn, and it is approaching mid-game. He has been maxing traps, so good luck to Misfits defending this tower, as they are very short range. They do have Alphara's ultimate, and they don't have Alphara's ultimate, so yeah, this tower should be falling. Oh, his Wisdom's going to jump over the wall. Woolite steps too far forwards and dies.
That is the third time we've seen the gank from that wall specifically as well.
The danger wall.
It was so good from Wisdom right there. You'd imagine that teams would have learned their lesson by now, warding the Raptor pit to avoid that sort of potential gank. But Woolite, he just gets dropped instantly. Really good play from Misfits to keep their turret alive. And even though Dreams does get caught out, they're able to return the favor onto Woolite and force both of his summoner spells.
Yeah, really nice, and it's kind of case in point from what we were talking about pre-game, where Woolite used to be this player in LCS who got caught out all the time, overextending a little too far forwards, then fixed a lot of those issues, and then regressed on that. Kind of this split, I think, more than anything. And again, that's not quite the same as overextending in a side lane, but he did stand too close to the chicken coop and got killed by Wisdom there.
My only counter-argument to that would be that was just really smart from Wisdom.
Also true.
To punish the mispositioning of Woolite. So, in part, Woolite should have been more aware, but given the number of Challenger players we've seen get too close to that wall,
yeah,
can you excuse it or not is, well, no, but...
we can be lenient on him, for sure.
You can understand why it would happen, so...
Wisdom's also having one of those games where he does really well. I feel like it's one or the other. Wisdom doesn't have a lot of middle ground. There's no half measures with Wisdom. He either goes ham or doesn't do very well, I think is the best way to put it.
Or he goes full God Bro.
Full God Bro.
I'm obviously messing.
Yeah, Godbro was not here today, as we have a new mid laner on Nerves, so interesting to see where Godbro will go from here, because he's also been a player who's been around the Challenger Series for a long, long time.
And also, if people didn't see his qualifier performance, a lot of people won't understand the reference full Godbro.
Yep.
And obviously, I am referring to the game with you and I cast.
The LeBlanc one.
The LeBlanc one.
Indeed.
Ah, Godbro. Always entertaining, that's for sure.
Yeah. We have some very well-defined players, I think, in Challenger this split. Selfie has definitely stepped up versus his LCF performances. I think pretty much every game we see Selfie, he's just doing really well. This time on the Swain, he's having a decent performance, but he's been farming very well despite being dropped once in the mid lane. And Misfits, kind of going back to Champion Select, we were talking about how the lanes have very much been drafting for like winning lane, getting ahead. Well, I didn't care about your portal, Noxiac. And they haven't gotten super far ahead. They're just 1,000 gold ahead. They haven't really been destroying Epsilon. So, is that a worrying trend? Like, are Epsilon just going to body them in the mid game, or?
Well, you say that. However, if we just sort of look at the lanes right now, bear in mind Alphari was 30 CS down, and now he's closed that back to a 10 CS deficit. For a long time, Hans was actually leading in CS. He's now fallen behind a little bit because he did rotate round to the mid and had to defend it after Dreams got caught out. Who, by the way, still level 5. I feel like Misfits should really get on that. And Selfie is also actually level 11, currently has the CS advantage, and even though he gave a kill away, he's still doing very well. Decided to go for some very early magic resistance because, to be fair, EPS are also very heavy on the AP side, so it makes sense to go for an early Spirits Visage. But overall, Misfits, you're right in the sense that they haven't completely dominated the early game, but I definitely wouldn't say that they've had a weak one. I think that the early game has still gone very well for them. The question is how they now transition this, because what we've noticed is that teams seem to be not entirely aware of their win conditions necessarily, and even if they are, can't always properly execute on them. And I feel like that's not something we've experienced with Misfits. The big thing for Misfits that we've noticed is overconfidence, where they've often disrespected their opponents and just allowed them to really run away with the game. Yeah. So we'll have to see right now, given that Misfits don't have an insurmountable lead, I would expect them to treat their opponents with respect, but you never know.
Always treat your opponent with respect, unless you can play Draven. But we even saw that at the start of the day with Gap. Oh, Noxiac is being CC'd down here, but Warlight will be able to get away. So flank came in from Misfits, but unable to execute perfectly to pick up those kills. Everyone is getting fairly well itemized, though. Selfie's going to pick up that Spirit Visage, also with the Rod of Ages, so getting into a pretty tanky bird. And he's going to be scary as we get into these fights. But Kozuki's also scaling up, so the two birds in the mid lane are very scary when we get later on.
The Battle of the Birds.
Battle of the Birds.
Crow versus the Eagle.
Sounds like a great film. Blockbuster in 2016.
I disagray.
Battle of the Birds.
Why would I want to see two birds
Actually, more like a low-budget film with like really bad CGI.
It's like Sharknado, that's what I think.
Yeah.
Right, that's, when you say Battle of the Birds, all I have is some like really crappy quality as Noxiac.
Oh no, Noxiac stepped too close to the wall, too close to the fire. He's going to make it out. Smile and wave, boys.
Smile and wave. He's able to just barely get out of that one. And I really like the reference because he does turn into a penguin.
He does.
As he was trying to get some vision down, doesn't realize that Wisdom is sitting there in the brush just waiting for him. And while he takes a lot of damage, unfortunately there's no ignite on the side of Misfits to secure themselves that kill. Noxiac is quickly able to get his magical journey down. Unfortunately, it takes him on a path to safety. So Misfits unable to guarantee themselves another kill, but they are slowly propelling their lead even further. They've now assigned lanes to Misfits having Selfie and Alfari in a 1-3-1 fashion. But the problem is they're not really forcing any objectives, and right now I don't think they need to, simply because they are scaling quite nicely. Simply because notice that Hans has actually decided to change up his itemization. Rather than going for the Ghost Blade, he's shifted his attention more towards the Essence Reaver, which means that he could very well go for Phantom Dancer next, as Dreams takes a lot of damage. Going to be able to disengage from that one though, but yeah, Misfits will be scaling nicely, so come these mid-game fights, once they've got these two big items, they'll likely start to look for fights.
That they are. The trap line is being opened up. What a cocoon onto Kirei. Wisdom doesn't quite have the follow-up. Fantastic binding from Noxiac will lock up Hand Sour and Dreams, and Alfari will TP right into a trap and a headshot out from Warlight. So it was a good setup.
So you're seeing all the disengage available on Epsilon right now, because there is no way for Misfits to hard engage onto a fight. Yes, they landed the Kun onto Kirei, but it just wasn't enough. There's not enough follow-up from Misfits. They have no real way to just instantly collapse, and because Alfari was a little bit slow on the teleport, and not only that, because he teleported into a trap, it's just so difficult for Misfits to actually make a play happen. They need to play around something like the Baron, like the Dragon, if they want Epsilon to come in range of them. But then again, why would they ever want to come in range of them? Because they have an Azir, they have a Caitlyn, who we saw in our last series are so good at just keeping their opponents at arm's length.
Exactly, and Epsilon are actually playing this composition really well. Epsilon has been a team I think we've had lower expectations for coming into this split, despite how good they were as Inspire. Of course, made it to playoffs, looked really good. We were like, hey, maybe they can actually challenge the bottom of the LCS teams, and then kind of disappointed in the end, along with Millennium. It was a really weird playoff in the last Challenger series, but yeah, coming into this first couple of weeks, we're like, maybe a 4th, 5th place team, kind of looking at something like that. And in this game, we're actually turning up against Misfits, who we were saying is probably like top of the table, like top 2 along with Forge. So yeah, Epsilon kind of standing up to Misfits right now. Of course, we have to see the conclusion of the game because it's kind of just even. And see if they can actually close it out against Misfits, because Misfits have had general control of the map, have picked up the dragons, and also are scaling fairly well into the mid-game, late game. So lots of questions to be answered, but they're not getting wrecked.
No, they are not. And that's the important thing, Pulse.
Yeah.
Just having a look at some of the items that have been finished right now. Misfits, Alfari. Ooh, Noxiac takes a chunk of damage.
And the full culling. Will he be able to escape again? He's going to take the portal. And, I mean, Hans can't follow. So, again, Noxiac barely escapes. The heart of the Penguin is with him.
He would have got a kill.
He would have done.
Just saying.
Just getting in range a little bit faster.
Takes a chunk of damage.
He does. Lots of pot shots being thrown about. Lots of like ultimates being used, but no kills have gone down in such a long time. Kirei is going to connect his spear. And Dreams is going to connect his Orb of Energy. Here comes a TP out from Selfie. He's going to get on top of Walleye. Everyone's flashing away. Kirei is caught in the Never move. Wisdom goes way too deep under the tower and gets trapped as well. Walleye will finish him off with a headshot. Beatrice is going to be thrown down.
Wisdom, he tries to go for the flash cocoon. Unfortunately for him, there's just not enough follow-up from Misfits. They'd already used the ultimate from Alfari, the root had already come down from Selfie, and Handsummer was too mindful of the soldiers from Kozku, combined with the Emperor's Divide, that he did not want to risk overextending, and that results in Wisdom basically punching himself into a situation where Epsilon can quickly get themselves a kill.
Yep. For a guy called Wisdom, that wasn't very smart, but we're going to see Epsilon here all backing away. And it looks like a good setup in from Selfie, but they just kind of retreated too fast.
It definitely does. So you get the root down onto Kirei. You can see the follow-up flash root, which doesn't unfortunately land onto the target that you want, but really good response traps coming out from Walleye, combined with the binding and the additional spear damage coming out from Kirei. Just everything went right for Epsilon, and unfortunately nothing went right for Misfits. And this is now why we're starting to see why I'm not a fan of this Swain pick, because yeah, okay, you got through the laning phase, you gave away a kill, but you're still scaling up nicely. Now, explain to me how you get on top of the enemy team when they have an Azir, Gragas, a Nidalee, a Caitlyn, and a Bard. Like, which of those targets exactly gets on top of you? And even if you do close the gap, you then just have a Gragas through his ultimate out and disengage. You have an Emperor's Divide to create a gap once again, and then once the gap has been created, trap, 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 trap. Okay, come at me. You know, it's a very difficult composition for Misfits to execute, and you can see they've tried to have the teleport flanks come in, but they just haven't resulted in any success yet. So the only real strategy Misfits has right now is to potentially set up a 1-3-1, where they try and put Alfari and Selfie in a side lane, because they are ramping up. They're getting to a point where no one's going to be able to contest them. And if Selfie is allowed a 1-versus-1 lane, maybe he can make a play, get a kill, and that could be an opportunity for Misfits to then snowball off. If they get the Baron, that resolves a lot of their issues. But it's about getting that Baron. It's about getting to that point for Misfits. And my biggest concern is the fact that they've drafted a composition that, while not necessarily bad, it is good at team fighting.
They just can't get into one.
You can't get into one.
Yeah, a big problem for them. And Swain was the last pick as well. They saw the full composition from Epsilon, and they were like, okay, we can get into this fight. And then drafted Swain, and they only have like Karma to speed up, no reliable way to get into a fight, as you rightly mentioned. And we've seen, like, what, 3 engages now from Misfits just not work, and just hand kills over to Epsilon. You can see Alfari just hovering to the right-hand side of this siege, trying to get like an ultimate down or something, but a wave clear coming in from Epsilon as well. Mini wave disintegrator. I don't even think they got any damage onto that Epsilon mid tower. And literally, Misfits have been ARAMing for the last like 15 minutes and have not gotten anything done really. If anything else, they've just fallen behind. I mean, okay, that Ace in the Hole did nothing against Selfie, he'll heal it up as well, but they're not gaining any ground. And take a look at some of the item builds as well. Like, Alfari's gone for like a kind of more mid-game focused build, a lot of magic penetration, and it would be great if he could fight someone, but he can't. He can't get near anyone to land an Equalizer. He can't remotely get near enough to anyone to land a Flame Spitter. And Dragon has spawned, so theoretically this should be good for Misfits because they can draw Epsilon out into the open. But Epsilon, how much do they care about a second Ocean Dragon?
Well, given that they're setting up a lot of vision and trap control...
Moderate care.
Moderate care. They've also got Alfari pushing up in the top lane. As well as that, a minion wave is pushing in the mid, and because of the Sun Disc that Kozku would put up, Misfits just feel, alright, we don't have enough control over the map to try and force a play right now. Also, if we go into a choke point, that's actually going to be even better for the Caitlyn. It makes it easier for Nidalee to land her spears. You've also got the Gragas barrels, which you have to play around. There's also the Noxic Tempered Fate. You know, like, fighting in a choke point is not ideal for Misfits. So rather than take the risk, rather than try and make a play, if they had been able to properly set up for it, they would have forced it, but they weren't in a position to.
So my question is now, why did Misfits sit around the mid lane for so long and not set up Dragon, which is actually an objective they can pull Epsilon out into the open and try and execute their composition in the mid game? Because that seems to be what they've been trying to do for like 20 minutes.
Why would you dive a Gnar when, when you have no minion wave to do it?
It's a good point, Vedius.
Challenger series. Challenger. I told you should write a book.
It's like that meme where it's just like aliens, but it's like a Challenger series.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes...
But there's something we criticize Misfits, right? Like,
Yes.
they excel in their individual roles. We're like, probably top 2 in every single role. But when it comes to executing as a composition and making the map plays, they always falter.
For me, though, for me, like, that's not their problem.
Okay,
I
what
feel
is
like
the
they
problem?
can execute fine, because you can see they've tried multiple times to execute what their composition needs to do. But they've drafted in a way that they've just made it very hard for themselves to actually do it. Teleport comes in from Alphari, very risky.
Here comes the Tempered Fate onto 2 players. Re-engage coming in from Epsilon. Wisdom backing away. Selfie taking a bit of a beating. Keyray taking pretty much the full channel out from Beatrice. CosQ is going to take a bit of damage. His DS in the hole lands onto Hansam, a big chunk of damage. Followed with the Sand Soldiers as well. And that push has been repelled. Misfits are unable to finish off the tower.
So that was actually very aggressive from Alphari. The fact that he teleported underneath the turret with 2 of his members Tempered Fated.
As a rumble, yeah.
It was very risky, but fortunately it worked out for Misfits. They didn't lose any members, but at the same time they didn't really gain anything off the back of it either. So
yeah, I was going to say, did it work out for them, or did it just kind of go equal?
It didn't go awful. It wasn't a 2 versus 1 tower dive where you gave away a double kill.
Yeah.
I mean, like, sorry, that's the benchmark.
That is the highlight of the day for me, honestly.
That's just the challenges here. Is this play as bad as that one?
Yeah.
Right? So, Misfits right now, they're on the back foot. They decided to go for the red buff, and now they're not in a position to defend this tier 2
Epsilon,
turret in the mid.
what a counter push, and everyone's going to take the journey out. Penguins all going to make it to safety. And yeah, so Misfits continuously trying to make these plays. The one time they go back, Epsilon just takes something away from them. And they are falling further and further behind. Wisdom's going to try and make a play. Oh, a great cocoon onto Noxjack will take him out. And Selfie is into the back lines, but he's underneath the tower. Maybe now we can finish it up, but he's got the reinforced armor with no minions around. But Selfie is really not taking damage. And with that 1 kill, Misfits, it's 28 minutes into the game, by the way, and they'll turn their attention to this Baron.
Look at the number of flashes that are down for EPS. Sartorius does have the teleport. He's going to try and stop this Baron.
He doesn't have ultimate, though, so he really can't stop them, and there's no smite near it. It's going to be Baron going down to Misfits. This could open up the game, and Warlight is getting chased down. Never move. Not going to connect onto Caitlyn, so Caitlyn will get away. Laser Bird's going to slow him down a little bit, but won't be able to pick up the kill there. So all pretty much off that Hansam at 1v1 against the turret here. Going to be helped by Selfie. Okay, but really, that was all based off of Wisdom's great cocoon.
It certainly was. He decides to be hyper-aggressive once more, and to be fair to Wisdom, if he has seen an opportunity, he has always gone for those flash cocoons. And while his first one worked out, the following one's not quite as successful.
Yeah.
Finally, he gets to play once again, and this is something that I really like to see from Wisdom. Even though he makes failed attempts, it doesn't deter him, it doesn't stop him. He's still constantly trying to look for these picks, trying to look for these plays, and it enables his team to start off this whole fight. So they get the cocoon down onto Noxjack, instant ultimate out from Alphari in a really good position because it forces EPS to split up, and there's the good pincer attack from Misfits where, because they're distracted from the front line of Misfits, Selfie can come in from the flank and it forces the ultimate out from CosQ very early on, which means that he can't really use it to reposition any of his opponents. So then when Misfits go for the Baron, there is no real way that EPS can contest because they've used the vast majority of their big engage tools.
And that went really well. I particularly loved the ultimate coming in from Alphari, as you mentioned, split up the fight. And now Misfits with this Baron buff are able to pressure multiple lanes. Now they have this double TP composition with the 1-3-1. Now they can send Swain into the bot lane, Alphari into the mid lane, 3-man stack the top lane, and everything is going perfectly for Misfits. So yeah, really well played by Wisdom. I mean, you miss every shot you don't take, right? So yes, he had a couple failed engages. Yes, Misfits weren't able to come into the game, but just that one worked out. Flash coming in from Hansama, everything tossed towards him in terms of ultimates, and he just managed to escape. So just kiting around Epsilon right now, Selfie pushing the bot lane, of course pushing the mid lane as well, and Alphari is rotating into the top lane. He has ultimate in the bank, ready to use it.
So you can see now how Baron just solves all the problems for Misfits, because now they can properly set up a 1-3-1. They have the double teleports. Yes, Selfie's teleport is on cooldown, but he is a level 18 Swain with a Baron buff and 3 items. I mean, who's going to stop that Swain, eh? There's no way that Epsilon can deal with him, and they can just leave him in a side lane. They can just allow the Baron empowered minions to just take down these turrets. And Misfits, they can just group up as 4 members. I don't know if it's a smart play to actually put the guy with teleport in with the group, but Misfits, they don't care.
Wisdom. He's taking a lot of damage. Here's the equalizer. He's going to be cutting up. Oh, Selfie coming in from the bot side though, and Kirei completely disintegrates. Selfie is going to have to back off here real quick as Hansam is poking from the sidelines. So great kill onto the jungler so far, lining up the ace in the hole into Dreams, takes him low, and Misfits may have to back away. They still have half duration on their... actually, no, there's less than half duration. I got mixed up from the buff there. So
about 30 seconds.
Yeah, about 30 seconds, but it will allow them to take the Cloud Dragon here. And Misfits took a lot from that play.
Yes,
4,000 gold advantage opened up now.
Selfie is getting really good at these flank engages, and he's always saving them for just the right time, because as Misfits are trying to force a fight, it's always a matter of Selfie saying, okay, while you're distracted, I'm going to come in for the pincer movement. And this is something that we wanted to see earlier on from Huma with their use of the Ashe ultimate, and they just, or Millennium, sorry, that they never really could execute. So this is how you do it. You draw attention to the actual engaging force, and it allows your mid laner to then just walk up and get the flank that he needs. And this is how you properly allow the Swain to get into the fight without overcommitting and basically being the focus of the enemy front line. So it's really smart play from Selfie, and overall really intelligent play from Misfits that not only get themselves... Oh, they weren't able to get the tier 2 turn in the mid, my mistake. But they've definitely got a lot more pressure down, and I think it was smart of them to just disengage once they realized that they no longer had the Baron to enable them to help take that tower.
Yeah, Selfie as well. Hasn't got the Zonyas yet, but he just refuses to die, even though Woolite picked up the Executioner's calling. That's at the point where he had to back away, but he was still very strong. We've got some item synergy coming out here, I feel.
That's a lot of Rylai's. We said that there's no hard CC, so let's just stack up the soft CC.
And together, combined, we will not still have hard CC, we'll just have a lot of slows.
We have a really big wand.
We can slowly chase you down. But Misfits still have a lot of magic damage, but Hansam is not doing badly in this game. He's quickly getting towards the point where he's doing a lot of physical damage as well. So Epsilon can't just stack up magic resist. So they also had to put some armor into the item builds. And Misfits, they're ahead in this game. But what do they do now? There's no Baron on the board for another 2 minutes. Do they just need to wait it out and just do the same? Get a pick, go Baron?
They might not even need to get a pick. They have so much damage available. They could just nuke the Baron down instantly. But what they really need to do right now is just keep the 1-3-1 going. Keep drawing pressure. Wait for Epsilon to just make a slight misstep in terms of their lane assignments. And then Misfits can look to try and punish that. Because have a look at this. There are already 2 members of Epsilon just trying to deal with the Swain alone, who... Level 18 Void Staff completed as well.
Yeah, he's been level 18 for quite a while.
I mean, that is crazy. I'd love to see a
montage of him farming.
No, how quickly he actually got to level 18, because that was impressive. The fact that, I mean, just being level 18 when the highest next level on your team is 16.
Yeah.
Just shows you how far ahead you actually are. I mean, the base stats that you just get from being level 18, I mean, your runes now have maxed out, your base stats have maxed out, your Rod of Ages is at 10 stacks. You are late game.
You are indeed late game. But to be fair, we had like the Aram go on for like forever, and like the game stall out for such a long time. He had the freedom to just soak waves for the longest time. Like it wasn't necessarily Selfie like playing the minion waves perfectly and bouncing them, so he always picked them up at the right time. It was just because like Misfits were never able to get into a fight, so it's kind of a byproduct of that, I feel.
Yep.
Doesn't take away from the fact he's very strong. He's approaching full item build at 35 minutes, so I'm not really sure what Epsilon can do about him, really, because they need to deal with the rest of the threats on Misfits. And yes, Selfie dropped low in the last fight, but that was with like 5 people wailing on him, with Woolite with Executioner's calling, and they still couldn't kill him. So
you just have to make sure you properly ward your flanks. You can see that the vision coming out from Epsilon is actually a lot stronger than it was before, because they can now set up for any sort of play that Misfits look to try and make as they try and start these engagements. The big thing right now, though, is Epsilon, they're very mindful of this Baron. They want to make sure that they do have vision control over it, but their forces are being spread thin because of this 1-3-1 coming out from Misfits. And Epsilon have the choice of, hey, we either group up and look to try and control this Baron, or we we give away our, and as a result we give away our side lanes, or we actually separate our forces, and that actually means that Misfits in their 3 versus 3 could very well come out ahead, because again, just looking at the level differential, 16 of Handsama to the only just turned 15 of Woolite. So right now Misfits definitely in the driver's seat, and it's really down to, it's their game to lose really at this point. They can't force these fights. They need Epsilon to overstep or get caught out. Or they could just go for a sneaky Baron play.
A sneaky Baron play. Wisdom is clearing out the wards here. And 3-2-5 in terms of kills. It's not necessarily been the bloodiest game in the world, Vedius. We've had a lot of attempted engages this game. And with the Baron live, Epsilon will have to try and contest this. And who do we have in the bot lane? Sartorius, so we just have the TP. Selfie is roaming up to the mid lane. He's being pinged out, so he's been seen on a ward. And currently it is still stalling out as both teams kind of posture around the Baron area. Lots of wards have gone down. So Epsilon will know if Misfits go towards this. The Crab has timed out, and Misfits are going to try and burn this one down as fast as possible. And that is dying very, very quickly. Tempered Fate will buy some time for Epsilon. Here comes the TP out from Sartorius. Soldiers are coming in. Sartorius is coming in and going out. There's a really good equalizer. Will split up Epsilon. Misfits will go dive back onto the Baron and should be able to... Oh! Steal from Kirei! And Epsilon are going to try and turn the tables, but I think now's the time just to get out of here. Lining up, it's in the hole, doesn't finish off Selfie. He's going to recall in a very precarious spot, but Selfie, he doesn't have flash, and Koski will take him out. Conquering Sands comes in, so Troy is following after. He still has Exploitive Cask. That was a 1-for-1 trade in terms of kills, but Kirei, his life for Aya, he was able to take down the Baron.
The only way Misfits could have lost that play was if the Baron was stolen away, and Kirei, the man of the hour, is able to steal it. Phenomenal stuff coming out from Kirei. He threw out the spear, he gets the leap in, combines it with the Q smite combo, and there's nothing that Wisdom can do. Just great execution from Epsilon, and it was just the way in which they actually played around that Baron, because it was so smart. They're going to be able to get the Elder Dragon on top of the Baron, and we talked about how this was Misfits' game to lose. Well, that right there is how you lose it.
It really is. 38 minutes into this game, and Epsilon just picked up a Baron and an Elder Dragon and have pretty much equalized the gold deficit they were in. Only 2,000 separates them now. Such a good ultimate from Noxiac.
So keep an eye on the actual ultimate from Alfari, because while the positioning of it was good, because there's no real follow-up, it doesn't have that much of an impact. And because Misfits decide to just instantly go back to the Baron, they now have no zoning tool to prevent EPS from actually going for the engage. Coscu just throws his ultimate up to force anyone from actually coming in close, and then the rest of Misfits, they're sort of left speechless. Yes, they get the kill down onto Kairi, but he's already done his job. He steals away the Baron. He's keeping EPS in this game right now, and the fact that they get the Elder Dragon on top of that means that EPS, they could very well close out the game.
Yeah, Gragas was thinking about popping the ult there. We're going to see the kill onto Handsama. Wait, was this a 1v1? Knocks him into the tower, also took tower aggro, but Sartorius is just so tanky. He just ground down Handsama, and also with the tick from the Dragon just ticking in there, yeah. Wait, Epsilon are pushing down the boss side of the map right into this inhibitor tower. This is not looking good for Misfits. They're now being pushed in. They've got decent wave clear, but Kirei is able to chip away at this tower. And remember, this is still a Caitlyn who's getting into late game now.
And you have all those traps coming down, acting as a good area of zone control that Misfits have to play around. When you combine that with the soldiers, Misfits' life is becoming very difficult, but here comes the teleport flank.
Here comes Selfie, trying to make something happen. Puts down the never move. Sartorius is going to jump on top of him. Good equalizer will force the rest of the team away from Sartorius, but he's just too tanky. They can't finish him off in time. And the tower is taken out already. Selfie getting chunked down. And this inhibitor should easily go over to Epsilon. And now they will also back away. So Epsilon have completely turned the tables in this game. Equalize the goal totals, have an inhibitor destroyed for them, and it will take everything in this jungle away from Misfits at 40 minutes into this game, all really on that steal from Kirei.
Oh, wow. And the thing is, Misfits, they tried to force a fight onto the Dragon, or the Elder Dragon buff, sorry, and there's no way you're going to be able to get away with that one. You can see the teleport flank did come in from Selfie, but again, because you have no hard crowd control, how are you going to lock down those primary targets? The only solid CC you have is that never move, and for a challenger player to actually get caught up in that, knowing that the flank is coming, well, then why are you playing in the Challenger Series? I mean, it's just not going to happen at this sort of level. And unfortunately for Misfits, they're now running out of options because EPS are now in control of the game. They have a great composition at setting up sieges and sitting underneath your turret, getting a bunch of poke down, and then slowly whittling it away with the power of that Caitlyn. And then if you ever try to engage, they have the Gragas for disengage, they have the Bard for disengage. You have to play around the Emperor's Divide as well as the Caitlyn traps. And it's just, we're back at square one where Misfits have drafted a composition for themselves where, yes, they had the lead, but it was so difficult for them to actually finally close out the game with their lead.
I mean, it was dependent on the Baron, right? That's exactly what we were saying.
They needed that Baron, and it was, I don't think it was wrong of them to try and force that Baron. And I think they could have got it, but it was just the execution overall. Burning a little bit, the ultimate from Alfari wasn't optimal, the use of the never move just overall wasn't ideal, and now Epsilon, they're knocking on the doors of Misfits.
Yeah. Middle tower is getting taken out. Selfie's trying to zone away Epsilon. But this is becoming extremely close. If Misfits can actually get into a fight, they could still be good, but it's just trying to make that happen is so difficult. Empress Divide comes out, Golden Bird from Selfie, but he's used the Zhonya's, and that is a massive tool for him getting into these fights when Woolite and Kozq are dishing out so much damage in the late game. And Selfie no longer has that available to him in his arsenal. And the siege will continue. This is where Epsilon exceed.
And look at this, the Ocean Drake coming into its own right now, actually giving you some regeneration. When you combine that with the heals of Nidalee and Bard as well, even the damage that Misfits get down, it's not enough to force Epsilon away from the turret. And they should be able to pick this one up. They're just very mindful of Misfits damage.
Cocoon lands onto him. Tempered Fate is going to zone away Misfits, not allowing the capitalization. Wisdom's going to take a lot of damage. That's a very odd flash coming in from Wisdom, but he will have to go back to base. There is a minion wave knocking on the front door. Ultimate from Woolite will just chip away Alfarian Dreams.
That tower's gone.
That tower's also gone. Mid tower is going to come in here. Satorius looking for the E. Body slam, flash, but it was just zoning. And Epsilon take the middle tower. They also get a Nexus turret because 5 members were forced to defend mid.
Oh my word. Misfits. They were in control of this game.
Yeah.
They had such a strong lead. The way they were setting up their flanks was superb. They were finally being able to make this difficult composition work for themselves, and now they're in a situation where they're on the back foot. Their base has now been broken into. They are struggling to figure out a plan on how to actually force a fight onto EPS. And even if they do force a fight at this point, could they actually close the game out? I mean, you have now almost 5 items as here as Wisdom takes a lot of damage.
Flash ultimate in from Kozq. Wisdom's going to jump to safety. Actually make it out of here. Selfie was coming in just in case a fight erupted.
It's a big cooldown.
It is a big cooldown. Alfari rotating from the bot lane. We may have a 5-5 brawl, and I'm not even sure if Misfits win a 5v5 anymore with Caitlyn Azir late game. Selfie's going to flash in, doesn't land the never move, and that might be it, honestly. Like, the disengage just coming out. Kozq is getting locked down off to the side. The rest of the team is going to try and cover his retreat. Handsama gets the full channel of the culling. Alfari coming in. They take out Woolite. Handsama falling on to Noxiac. He dashes into Baron. And the rest of the team is now closing in around it. Handsama is very low himself, but he's life-stealing up. Spear doesn't quite connect onto Lucian. And the Baron over to Misfits. Woolite with the positioning error.
And unbelievable that Misfits are somehow able to claw their way back into this game. The fact that Kozq had used that ultimate early on, combined with his flash, meant that Misfits set themselves up to force the fight and get themselves the kills that they needed to get themselves the Baron. And now they're just walking into the base of Epsilon. There is still 20 seconds left on Woolite. Misfits know they have the numbers advantage. They still do have a couple of ultimates on cooldown, but they don't care.
Tower's dead. Moving on to the inhibitor itself. Misfits with this Baron are just unstoppable. They will be backing away here now that they've gotten the objective they wanted. No dragon on the board for a little while. No Elder Dragon, of course. 10-minute respawn on that, but Let's take a look at actually how Woolite got called out, because I didn't even see it the first time around.
So you can see the flash engagement from Selfie didn't exactly matter anything, but Dreams, he notices that Cosq doesn't have any flash, doesn't have an ultimate, so he wants to go for the fight. Big ultimate, and Woolite eased in. He eased in to actually get the claps down onto Dreams. Big crit from Hansama combined with the equalizer damage. Oh my word, Woolite actually threw that game.
I hate to say it, but Woolite pulled a Woolite. Right there.
Man, that
45 minutes into the game, when you have that lead, that's pretty much unforgivable. This really should have been Epsilon's game, and now it's anyone's game. Misfits were almost completely locked out there. A late game Azir, a late game Caitlyn, Siege coming in, one Nexus turret down, and just trying to capitalize and be greedy for a kill has given Misfits a way back into this game, a way back into this game. What a crazy turn of events. It's really been in the last kind of like 10 minutes.
Oh, Challenger Series.
Yeah.
You always find a way. Elder Dragon going to be spawning in 1 minute and 40 seconds. A lot of items completed. We're now at full late game. Everyone's hitting either 4, or well, working towards their 5th item.
Yeah.
Selfie looking once again for the potential flank, but is also very mindful of the positioning. And look at how far he has the teleport, putting so much pressure down in the bottom lane. They did lose that inhibitor, which is very unfortunate for Misfits, but they're not going to care. They're going to use this empowered wave to try and knock down the doors of Epsilon's base, and suddenly the tables have turned.
Tempered fate to Selfie, but I don't think enemy capitalization is going to come out. He's going to throw down the bird and the torment. And looking to push down this tower. Good culling. We'll clear out the minion wave. Hansama going to be shielded up, and Wisdom is going in. He's going to buy some time with the repel. They really need to take down the tower. Wisdom's going to fall here, surely. Yes, he'll go into his Guardian Angel. Meanwhile, Hansama having to back away with Selfie and Alfari. Wisdom trying to make it out alive. Dreams with the MVP shield will get him out. And Misfits take down the tower with no casualties. Kirei not connecting the Javelin. And Selfie will even farm away the Krugs as he backs off.
So Wisdom a little bit over-aggressive once more with the Flash Cocoon. He isn't quite able to get the kill, but he draws enough attention to himself that Misfits get themselves the 2-3 turret down in the bottom lane. So now that's an exposed inhibitor. There's a double teleport still available on Misfits, so they can send someone to the top half of the map to clear out that wave while they can maintain their pressure in the bottom lane. We're now approaching the 50-minute mark, which what really should have been like a 30-minute game for Misfits is becoming a long-winded battle where both teams are looking to contest over this Elder Drake.
Oh man, why do I feel like this is going to go down to a smite? We've got Kirei backing off, Sartorius and the rest of the team are just trying to clear out the ward right now. Or the wards, with an S. Wisdom's trying to do the same, but by himself. Now Misfits are all catching up. Elder Dragon is alive. And Wisdom gets his Banshees popped. 49 minutes into this game, a decisive team fight will close this one out. Hansama does not have a lot of lifesteal, if any lifesteal. He's got a tiny bit. But Elder Dragon has been started by Epsilon. Wisdom, he's been completely zoned out by these Caitlyn traps. Here comes the TP. Now from Alfari, Wisdom is now jumping in, but the whole of Epsilon turn their attention towards him. Equalizer comes down, Selfie's right into the middle of the team. Here comes Big Bird, gets the first kill, goes golden. Dreams is getting chased down, he has to make his way out. Hansam is still alive, he's kiting down Sartorius. Woolite is so low, and Selfie refuses to die. The Lesser Ravens find the double kill, 4 kills to 3. Incredibly messy fight.
And Misfits somehow win that fight, and now with the 2 members, they might look to try and close the game, or they're going to stick to the Elder Dragon. They were a bit indecisive, but they have decided that this objective will be their priority. And what a close exchange between the 2 teams. I'm really excited to see that replay once more, because there were just so many little things that happened. Alfari throwing the ultimate not onto a key target. Woolite getting caught by a binding. Just have a look at the intricacies. Wisdom on the front line takes a brunt of the damage and the focus from Woolite. Cosq is actually able to avoid all the damage from the ultimate from Alfari. Woolite is doing so much damage on the backline with the flank from Cosq, but then Hansama and Selfie keep the fight alive. Just look at the damage coming out from Selfie. He is able to shut down Wisdom. Hansama is able to shut down the flank from Cosq, and then it's just a matter of cleanup for both Selfie and Hans, and Misfits, their 2 carries coming out absolutely huge in that final team fight. Misfits get themselves the Elder Dragon, but unfortunately it's only going to last 2 minutes. They have a very small window to take advantage of it. And with inhibitors respawning, we're pretty much going to return to a stalemate.
This has been a crazy game. After what was a really bizarre early game and mid game for like, what, 25, 30 minutes. The last 20 minutes have just... It's just been crazy. I mean, both teams picking up objectives. It's been back and forth. Honestly, based off a lot of mistakes coming in from individual members and then capitalized really well by the opposing team. Selfie has been full item build for a long time now. It's really just the battle of the late game threats, like Swain late game versus Caitlyn, Azir. Even Alfari, like Rumble late game is not to be underestimated. He hits like a truck right now. And both AD carries are also full item build with crit item builds as well, so haven't just gone for the mid-game spikes. Like Sam was preparing from this pretty much from his first item, went with the Essence Reaver versus like the Black Cleaver or the versus the Ghost Blade. And late game is even stronger now on ADCs with the changes in 6-12. Wisdom, this is not the time to get caught out. Selfie's going to try and cover him. Wisdom will flash over the wall and be helped out by Dreams, but Baron has just spawned and Wisdom is so low, and Epsilon can see him going back.
Oh, but Misfits, they might decide to rush this one down anyway. Remember that this is very late into the game. They have a lot of damage available to them. Wisdom, he's just going to quickly return to his teammates as quickly as he can. Misfits have the positional advantage. Remember that they did gain control over the Rift Scuttler. Scuttle Crab, sorry.
Scuttler.
The Scuttler, as Hans just wants to get a bit of poke down with that culling. So very tense right now between these two teams. Any small mistake could result in the game going in one team's favor or the other. So they have to be very mindful of this.
Oh.
Bit of a swap over just to increase the tension.
Yep.
Timey-wimey. to 18 kills. Gold is completely irrelevant at this point. Everyone is full build. It is literally all down to mechanical skill.
Wisdom.
He doesn't have flash. He needs to be mindful of setting up a flank like that. But other than him, so many of the summoner spells are actually unavailable. No flash for Cosq, no flash for Alfari, no flash for Sartorius.
Is it a ridiculously tense situation when Elise is your primary form of engage on a lineup, just trying to land those flank cocoons? Meanwhile, Epsilon don't really want to engage the fight. They want to respond to an engagement from Misfits, try and get a pick if they can. Look at the double tap damage onto Kirei. Going to be followed from Wisdom. The Tempered Fate going to be used, but Wisdom's dropping low. Spear lands, trying to get a range to finish him off. Here's the instant. Oh, Dreams needs to block it. Repel comes up, and we'll be forcing that ultimate out. Remember, Wisdom still has the Guardian Angel. Now Epsilon in retreat. Wisdom just have the regeneration as well from the Ocean Dragon they picked up earlier. Selfie trying to block off this choke point.
Misfits, they just need to disengage. Instead, they've decided to commit to the Baron. This could be a big mistake.
Spear landing. Wisdom so low. He'll go up again into Repel. Noxiak will make his way out using the Magical Journey. Big trap line has come down, trying to zone Misfits away from this Baron.
Oh man, Pulse. This is so tense. Selfie, he's a trap!
He just walks into the trap line, will go golden before getting chunked down. Has to flash away, he's so incredibly low. He does not have a Guardian Angel, flying a little close to the sun. Kirei is trying to hunt him down. Big spear onto Hanshammer, and Epsilon will use this advantage with the chunk onto 3 members to go for this Baron. I'm not even sure that Misfits can contest this, it's dying so fast.
It's gonna go down to Epsilon. They get the poke down, and all because Selfie just walks onto the trap line, is forced to use his Zhonya's instantly, forced to burn the flash. Unbelievable play. Just so many individual unbelievable plays that...
It's not even like the trap line's invisible.
I can understand if Cosq came in from the flank and knocked Selfie into the team. I'd get it. I'd forgive you, Selfie. I can understand if Wisdom gets a flash cocoon and you get caught. I can understand that. What I cannot understand is if you're just going to walk into the enemy team onto a trap line and give your opponents a free Baron. That is not an acceptable mistake to make, and that is just... This should give the game over to Epsilon, all because of what was a massive misplay from Selfie.
But we've said that like 4 times in this game already, Vedius, where the game should be over to the enemy team off a mistake from an individual player. And somehow, it's gone the other way around. 55 minutes into this game, 100,000 gold from Misfits. You can see the item synergy continues as triple Rabadons has been picked up. Alfari Wisdom Selfie and the Rylai's Crystal Scepters. Selfie's letting the team down with the Abyssal Scepter here. And this is absurd, honestly. Misfits backing off. And yeah, I've said it's going to come down to one final team fight, but I've said that like 7 times already. And somehow it continues.
Neither team can really get a full-blown team fight because Epsilon, they don't really want the full 5v5 fight, whereas Misfits, they have no way to force it. So we're in this very difficult situation for both teams, but Epsilon, they're getting a lot of damage down. A bit of a bug, but Handsama, he gets chunked out by the ultimate.
Inhib's dead. It goes down. Big crits coming in from Warlight now. Literally over 2,000 damage on those crits. And turning attention to the middle inhibitor. Here comes the engage coming out from Misfits. Noxac dropping low. Emperor's Divide will try and split up the fight. Everyone's trying to escape in from Epsilon. Warlight is still incredibly low. He'll eventually go down to Selfie. Wisdom getting involved in this fight. Handsama will find the kill onto the second carry of Epsilon. And Sartorius, he's got no carries and he's getting chased down by Handsama. Will go into the chicken coop, but the rest of the team is dead. Kirei and Noxiak made it out alive, and Alfari is trying to protect the base. They're actually still sticking around the bottom lane. What is going on?
Epsilon, they have the Baron buff. They want to try and close out this game. Remember that there's actually only one Nexus turret left available. Sartorius, he teleports in, and he might be trying to get the back door.
He's stopping the recalls, but there is no minion wave coming in from Misfits. They're going to try and push down the middle wave.
Is it a base race?
It actually is a base race, but the minions, they're over to Epsilon, and somehow this play is working out. Noxiak and Kirei pushing in, but Noxiak taking all the damage. Wisdom is doing the same on the opposite side of the map, and gradually these minions are coming in. Only the first Nexus turret goes down, and Alfari is putting up a stellar defense with Selfie to stop this push coming in from Epsilon. And now Handsama and Wisdom with Dreams are on to the Nexus. Misfits take the win.
Misfits finally, in a 58-minute game, are able to take the victory. And what a long, slow, terrible game of League of Legends.
That was incredibly messy. I mean, every good play was offset by an individual mistake, and good capitalization, bad individual play, good capitalization, and that was just the whole game, pretty much, after the 20-minute mark. And I mean, that could literally have gone over to either team. So good job for voting Misfits, but it literally could have gone over to Epsilon as well.
It was tense. I enjoyed the tension in the game when you have that, when you do have that 50-minute, 2 teams facing off, one mistake. Engage. But to have the mistake be stand on a Caitlyn trap,
like really, it wasn't even from a play.
And to be fair, like Selfie made up for it later because he was able to get the kill down onto Warlight, which actually guaranteed them the game.
Yeah.
And so that's the only benefit. That's the only positive I'm going to give you, because to be fair, Handsama was consistently great throughout that game. Dreams made so many phenomenal plays. Kyrie with the steal. The Azir made one big misplay trying to go in for the flash ultimate, but then also his positioning was really good and his poke and damage was solid. To be fair, the 2 top laners were kind of silent in that game. Neither one really making monumental impact. Yeah, but
Alfari had a couple of good ultimates, but the team wasn't able to capitalize on a lot of them.
Exactly. The big problem for those ultimates was they were sort of zoning tools in a sense.
Yeah.
But they often, because there was no follow-up ultimates, there was no follow-up damage, they would just come down, and then you would have Epsilon immediately disengage, run off them, wait for the ultimate to display, and then re-engage back onto Misfits, who then didn't have a big damage-dealing ultimate available to them. So the Rumble pick for me it wasn't significant enough to warrant it being picked over something like a tanky frontline, like a Maokai or something else, or a Gnar, or just anything that could have been a more reliable engage tool.
Because in that stare down at the end, it was literally just like Wisdom trying to land a cocoon as like trying to get into a fight, and I was just like, that is absurd in like a late game fight when you're trying to get this 5v5.
Fair play to Wisdom though. I mean, the cocoons, he was always flashing in, going for those cocoon plays, and it was some of them paid off, some of them did not.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was constantly making those plays and the fact that it wasn't all bad, there were actually a lot of good in there too.
I mean, like 2 or 3 of them basically won the game there for Misfits, like getting into those engages. So yeah, props to Wisdom.
To be fair to Wisdom, he definitely showed his stuff, and apparently that was the longest game this split. 57-50. The longest game before was Forge versus Misfits as
Last
well,
week,
at 43-55.
Which was a long game. It really felt like a long game, but yeah, 57 minutes. So much back and forth, and it wasn't even like a slow one either. It was for like the first 15-25 minutes, but yeah, that devolved very quickly into.
And after last week's performance, where Misfits won 2 games in like 25 minutes, I thought, well, Pulse, we're going to finish early this evening. It's just going to be quick 2-0 for Misfits. They're just going to have another day in the office, clean up shop. But Epsilon definitely made their life hard, and I don't think Misfits made their life any easier with the draft they picked.
No, I don't think they did, but a win's a win, I guess. And if we don't get a challenger big play from you guys next week, I'm going to be very disappointed because they were like 70 in that game, so super easy to go back and find one. Either way, we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we'll be concluding our Week 3 coverage here with Epsilon and Misfits. Stay with us, guys.
I am tired.
Yeah. Dive back onto the Baron and she'll be able to... Oh! Steal from Kirei! And Epsilon are going to try and turn the tables, but I think now's the time just to get out of here. Lining up, Ace in the hole, doesn't finish off Selfie. He's going to recall in a very precarious spot, but Selfie, he doesn't have flash, and Koski will take him out. Equalizer comes down. Selfie's right into the middle of the team. Here comes Big Bird, gets the first kill, goes golden. Dreams is getting chased down. He has to make his way out. Hansam is still alive. He's kiting down Satori. Wooler is so low, and Selfie refuses to die. The Lesser Ravens find the double kill. 4 kills to 3. Incredibly messy fight. Everyone trying to escape in from Epsilon. Wooler is so incredibly low. He'll eventually go down to Selfie. Wisdom getting involved in this fight. Hansam will find the kill onto the second carry of Epsilon. And Sartorius, he's got no carries, and he's getting chased down by Hansam. Will go into the chicken coop, but the rest of the team is dead. And Alfari is putting up a stellar defense with Selfie to stop this push coming in from Epsilon. And now Hansama and Wisdom with Dreams are on to the Nexus. Misfits take the win.